Hey guys, so I have Mike, the pharmacist, on with me today. And I've been talking to Mike now for a little while. He's been dealing with benzo withdrawal now for about 11 months to a year, I think. And we've just been chatting back and forth about our experiences with benzo withdrawal. So I want to bring him on today. He has a pretty unique perspective coming in as like a pharmacist. So I find that's pretty crazy that you're dealing with this. But Mike, I was hoping you could like just tell us a little bit about your background, like why you got onto benzos and your experience with benzo withdrawal.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Scott. My history, I graduated from pharmacy school back in 2005. Feeling really healthy. Was put on a fluoroquinolone called Cipro, or ciprofloxacin is the generic name, by my primary physician for a stomach infection, minor stomach infection. Had a pretty significant injury to my nervous system. Had very weird symptoms: pins, needles, tingling, temperature issues with my body, always cold. Could never figure it out. Went to multiple doctors over a span of like 3 years or so. Finally went to a Lyme disease doctor, and she said I possibly had Lyme disease. Put me on a low dose of klonopin, which I find out now, isn't so low. Put me on klonopin back then, and it helped. It calmed my nervous system down. Didn't take it every day, took it intermittently for about 2 years or so. I would say maybe 2 or 3 days a week, just for some sleep issues that I had back then. But again, it did calm my nervous system down, made a lot of my symptoms a lot more mild back then. Really took me about 4 years in total to recover there. I was 4, maybe even 5 years. It took me until about 2010 to fully feel better. I still had some issues, but like some ulnar nerve issues with my pinky ring and ring fingers on my right hand would go pins and needles once in a while. But all in all, it was about 99% recovered. Got married, had a couple kids, and a couple years ago, at the end of 2019, our dog was killed out front of our house by a FedEx truck driver. It was pretty traumatic to my wife and I, and called the doctor and said I can't sleep. I was having issues sleeping for a couple of weeks, and he said, I'll call you in some Ativan. So I took some Ativan for intermittently again for about 5 to 6 months, and that's when all hell broke loose. I mean, you name it. The pins and needles came back. DPDR, depersonalization, derealization. I thought I was losing my mind. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I wasn't sleeping, not eating. Couldn't get in to see a psychiatrist because they were all backed up because of COVID. My wife was pregnant with our second child. It was truly a nightmare. And this went on for a good 6 to 7 months before I realized what had happened, that I had pretty much kindled myself and got back on a benzo when I shouldn't have. And the thing that boggles my mind is that in pharmacy school and even in 17 years of practice, I had never heard of kindling before. I had never heard of interdose withdrawal, of any of this stuff. And I would take an Ativan 1 milligram, and it would make all my symptoms disappear. And I asked colleagues about it, friends that I've known for years that are really good pharmacists that are even in their 50s and 60s that have been doing this for 30 years that had no clue. It's unreal that no one knows about this stuff. And finally, I went online and started talking to people and joined some groups, and they were like, "This could be benzo withdrawal." And I figured out that it was. I mean, I at that point I started at 1 milligram of Ativan a day. And in about 6 months span, maybe not even 6 months, I'd been up to 4 milligrams, and in bad shape and sick on the medication as well. I mean, if I didn't take 2 milligrams of Ativan first thing in the morning, I was shaking, tremors, DPDR. I could not function. This went on for another couple months until, like I said, I figured out that it was the Ativan that made me sick, and tried to taper over 6 months. It was disastrous. Updosed a few times because I couldn't handle the physical pain. I mean, that's when like the burning started, the burning skin, the intrusive thoughts, That's when the kind of depression, anxiety really started to kick in big time there for me. And, this went on for a while. I did a ketamine treatment or two, and that didn't help. And finally, we made the decision last summer that I just need to come off it. I mean, I still kind of regret cold turkeying, but I think I told you, Scott, I don't think I would have survived a taper, even a slow taper at that. It's just I couldn't do it to my family. It was a bad situation. So about 11 months, still pretty sick. Sorry.
What's that?
About 11 months off now, and still pretty sick, man. I mean, insomnia is bad. Still pins and needles, burning skin. So I'm hanging on at this point, man.
So it's more so the pain that's the worst symptoms. Do you have any like mental symptoms lingering?
Yeah, I mean, I still have the anxiety. Still have a little bit of depression. Depression did help. I did a TMS treatment. It's called transcranial magnetic stimulation. I did that back in the fall. It's a round of 30 or so treatments that you do. It's almost like an MRI type machine, and that helped with the depression some. But it's still there. I mean, it's tough, and it's a chemical depression. It's not a true depression. I can tell because some points in the day I feel completely fine, and then I'll get hit with a wave, and it just goes downward from there. So
right. And you're getting those cortisol like patterns where it's worse in the morning.
Oh yeah.
And sort of might be up and down a little bit during the day, depending on like meals and stuff. But then at nighttime you feel okay, right? Or do you just feel like a little bit better at nighttime, or?
I would say,
what does your pattern look like?
Most nights I'm about between 75 and 100%. I mean, last night from around 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., I felt zero symptoms, like zero symptoms, no burning, no anxiety. Had some cortisol. It's
pretty much the same for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, had my cortisol levels checked. They're off the chart. I mean, I think I showed them to you. They're 4 times the limit. The normal range there. So they're extremely high. Had my GABA tested. My GABA is extremely low. It's just it's from the benzos. It's 100% from the benzos, and I'm healing. It's taking time, but this is a rough boat to be in, and I never really understood until now. Now I understand what you guys are going through. It's not fun.
Yeah, and with a lot, I think another horrible symptom that goes along with this is a health anxiety, right? Because you never know what is benzo withdrawal, what is something else. And I always sort of say people, like, if you didn't have it before benzo withdrawal, then it's probably benzo withdrawal. Yeah. I'm not saying other things can't go wrong, but there's that health anxiety, and it makes you panic even more, brings the cortisol up even more. It's just like a snowball effect, right?
The cycle, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting. We had a very similar story. Like, I also took Cipro back in 2005, and I've never really quite been the same since. I've had gut issues, and I've sort of debated over the years, what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Is it that benzos, perhaps like people have such horrific benzo withdrawal because they had gut health or gut disorders before leading up to it? Or did the benzos create the gut problems, right? So, like, I'm of the strong belief that even if you don't really have gut symptoms, your gut and your brain axis, are so tied in together that these medications really affect your gut microbiome and your gut health, right? And they lead to histamine issues and all sorts of issues that your serotonin is mostly located in your gut, right? So I know that myself right now, I'm still trying to taper off Cymbalta, and the more I taper off it, the more my gut gets fucked up, right? So I've been stabilizing for a while, and my gut stuff has gotten way better. I've also taken some pretty drastic measures to make it better, but luckily I'm in a place now where I'm functional. But I was, like you, having those horrific mornings, and it would be sort of like a wave pool throughout the day. It was just like, maybe at 12 I'd feel okay, 2 I'd feel horrific, but lo and behold, 7 or 8 o'clock at night would hit, and I'd start getting these nice windows, and that's usually the pattern that people follow, right? So I think that's pretty telling for those of you who have health anxiety. If you're feeling better at nighttime, there's not something else going wrong with you. It's the benzo withdrawal,
Completely agree.
So this is something that like you don't get taught at all going to school for pharmacology, right? Like it's not something that you guys learn about at all in the slightest.
So the way I was taught to taper a benzo was 25% every week. So basically, essentially,
oh God, that shit would kill me.
It's insane. And you know, that's what these doctors are taught too, because this is not taught in medical. And the thing is, Scott, if this is not a question on a medical board, on a board question, it will never get taught to doctors ever or pharmacists. It won't.
Yeah.
It just won't.
It's just maddening sometimes. Like, and I feel that pharmacists are a little bit more on board with this kind of stuff in terms of like believing that benzo withdrawal is an actual thing. Whereas doctors, I don't think I've ever met a doctor who believes me that like I go to the doctor like 2 years later and be like, I'm still messed up since getting off the benzos. And they're always like, it's not the benzos. What it is that you have a psychiatric problem, which oddly enough, I never had before I got on the benzos. I only took the benzos for pain that I was having. Right. I was having chronic pelvic pain syndrome. And they're like, well, it's, you need to go back on the benzos. That's going to solve your problem because you have some kind of psychiatric disorder. And when you got off it, it just exposed your psychiatric disorder, right? Come on. And it's like, that makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. No. So.
I mean, I saw one pain doctor about a year and a half ago and told him my issues. And this is before I still figured out it was the benzo withdrawal. And he said, well, maybe you should just stay on the Ativan for the rest of your life. It's helping your pain. And I was like, dude, like, no, I don't want to be on this drug for the rest of my life. Do you know what these drugs do to your brain? And I knew going in, Scott, like, put it this way, between 2005 and now, a lot of information has come out about benzodiazepines. You have, people that have committed suicide on these drugs. You had Jordan Peterson come out a couple of years ago where he had an injury from the drug, where he's finally getting better. So there's more and more publicity that's coming out about how dangerous these drugs are. But at the same time, it's not getting through these primary physicians that are prescribing this stuff like candy. It's just not. And even psychiatrists, for that matter. I mean, psychiatrists still don't know. Yeah.
It's funny, everyone talks about the opioid epidemic. And the thing is, the benzos never or very rarely get mentioned. They're starting to get mentioned a little bit more, but I think people don't realize, like, I mean, if you look at all these celebrities, you'd think that all these celebrity deaths, it's always highlighted they're on opioids, right? Yeah. But there's always a benzo in the mix every single time with every, like, even recently, Taylor Hawkins, he had a benzo in the mix. Tom Petty, it's all these musicians, Michael Jackson, Kurt Cobain, all of these musicians, like pretty much every death that's out there with someone on opioids, there was a benzo in the mix. And Chris Cornell committed suicide and his family said, oh, he's perfectly happy. And he loaded up on benzos one night and hung himself, So like, it's crazy, man. Like it's like, it's just a completely ignored. It's like people just sweep it under the rug, oh, it's opioids, or whatever. And benzos are just like so under the radar still. And it's so annoying. And I kind of wish that, Jordan Peterson, I like his work. But, I wish that he would take that experience and run with it a little bit more, because he has a huge voice and he could really bring more of a voice to it and bring more advocacy for the cause. But he's not really. He's kind of just sweeping it under the rug now and just going on with his life. And I think that's kind of the wrong move,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you saw him on Joe Rogan or not, but he was almost giving one-word answers the entire interview when he started asking him about the. I think he was on. Was he on Xanax or Klonopin? I forget which one. But they asked. He was
on Klonopin.
Okay, yeah.
And I took Ativan like you. I took Ativan. I know you took Klonopin too, but yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I completely agree. he could have brought a lot more, shed a lot more light on that situation there, and I feel like he didn't. And for him, he's been through a lot of scrutiny throughout his career, so I kind of understand why he didn't. But at the same time, he could have been a huge voice with this whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So your symptoms right now. So if you had to get rid of a couple, so like, what are your absolute worst symptoms that you're going through right now?
Burning skin is by far my worst symptom. Like this morning, I was up at 2:00 in the morning. My ears burn, scalp burns, my face burns. And, it's funny. When I first started having these symptoms, a few of my buddies were like, dude, it's got to be just regular anxiety. And I said, anxiety does not cause your skin to feel like it's being sunburned.
Yeah.
Times that's 100. It just,
dude, that's, yeah. I just have to interject for a second. I've had probably dozens of people tell me it's anxiety over the years. I'm like, guys, I'm 41 years old, okay? I have had anxiety on and off for forever, like everyone does.
Yeah.
And you don't just fucking start getting like rashes and skin problems and vision problems and shit like that, like come on. It's just so annoying when people try to interject and they tell you what they think it is, and they have no idea what they're talking about.
There was one point, Scott, in early to mid-February, where every night for almost a month, I woke up 3 to 4 times a night, every single night, soaked in sweat. Like the bed was completely soaked.
Yeah.
Like that's not sorry, it's just not.
I've had that.
And not just that, like the chills along with it, the flu type symptoms, no temperature.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's classic withdrawal stuff. But yeah, I would say, getting back to my symptoms, the burning skin is probably, and the neuropathy is by far the worst. The insomnia is terrible. I'm up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning every single night. And it's brutal, man. It takes it out of you, especially since I'm still working full time almost with 2 kids. And
you have 2 kids. Yeah. We have the kids the same age as like 3 and 1 about.
Yeah. My daughter turns 4 on Monday. We're having a birthday party tomorrow. And
it's so hard.
Pay for it. It's just I'm praying that I have a window when her birthday party is tomorrow. But yeah. Look, when my daughter turned 3 in January, we had a birthday a little bit late in February because she was sick. But that's honestly on her birthday. I don't know if it's because I was working so hard on her birthday, and I was like cleaning shit up and getting stuff ready. But on her birthday, that's probably the worst I've felt in years. And it was just so defeating. I was at the park with her one day and trying to push her on the swing, and I felt like I was completely living on a different planet. That kind of brain fog. But this was like times 100. It was just so terrible. And I was really emotional because I'd been tapering off the Cymbalta, and I just broke down at the park. I was literally crying, and I was like, man, this is sad. It's I shouldn't be so hard on myself. At the time, I just felt like I was pathetic, and I was just crying at the park, and people are looking at me, and it's horrendous dealing with this sort of disease in a way. Wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, Scott. It's not. I've been there too. I mean, I cried at the park with my daughter a couple times there as well, where it's just get hit with a bad wave, and it's just you don't know what else to do. You feel trapped. The symptoms best of you, but yeah, I mean, the anxiety is still there. I would say the anxiety is more of a mild anxiety most days. I did have akathisia, which fucking sucks. I mean, akathisia is worst hell on earth. I had that.
I think it's the worst. Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. I had that a couple days a week for about 3 or 4 months, and that was just brutal. Just brutal type symptoms there. But yeah, I would say the burning, the insomnia, the anxiety, and again, the anxiety has gotten better, but it's still there, and the depression. And the depression comes in waves. When I feel better physically, I feel like the depression kind of lifts, which is typical of this from what I hear. And but I'm healing. I'm 11 months off the cold turkey, and I have no plans to quit. We discussed that I'm trying to work on my diet a little bit. That's where I kind of struggle there. Right now I'm on like a high carb diet, and I'm trying to work on that. I I'm gluten free, but I do eat a lot of oats. I eat a lot of steel cut oats every day. So I'm trying to figure out a way where I can cut them out somehow and replace those with something else. And maybe it'll be, more of a carnivore or a keto type diet. But yeah, that's my next step here, probably at a year mark, is to get my diet totally fixed. I mean, obviously no alcohol, no caffeine.
Oh yeah.
Those are definite no-nos, but that it's tough because, the kids are eating chicken fingers for dinner and it's like, well, I can't have that. I'm having something else. So, and daddy can't have that. He has to have something else for dinner, but you make do with, you make do where you can and you get by, but it's not easy for sure.
So, I mean, you're a strong dude. Look, you have 2 kids. You've been working the whole time. I feel like I can really relate to you because, it's so tough when you have to work and you have little kids and having to deal with the worst hell imaginable.
Oh.
It takes another level of strength that you didn't even think that you might have had ever in your life, And so I really commend you for doing that. But so
Likewise.
look, I know that you've gone through absolute hell, dude, and I'm really sorry that you've had to go through that. But I know we've talked a little bit about this bringing sort of like more meaning to your life and learning from this experience. Is there anything that you could take away from that you feel like maybe there might be a silver lining to going through all this?
Of course. I feel like you always have to find a silver lining in any dark situation in life. I mean, my silver lining here is even though I appreciated life before this happened, I'm going to appreciate it exponentially more than I did before. Because this is truly hell on earth, what you go through with this. Unless you've been here, you don't understand. My wife doesn't understand, and I love her. She has no clue of what I'm going through. My dad, I have an identical twin brother. They're very supportive, but at the same time, they have zero clue. The only people that know what we're going through are us. That's it. And my goal here is to be a better version of myself when this is all said and done. A 2.0, I like to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a very religious guy, but I do believe in a higher power, and I believe there's a reason this is happening. And I believe that reason is because I need to start, questioning things in life, question everything that I put in my body, ask questions about everything. I mean, even simple foods that I put in my body. I need to start looking at more labels and be more accountable.